Hey guys, it's James here from eBassGuitar, and in today's bass guitar lesson I want to show you a device called the I Saw Her Standing There Bass Riff Speed Builder. If you're looking to build speed, accuracy and dexterity in an unconventional way, make sure you watch this lesson all the way to the end. Hey guys, it's James here from eBassGuitar. So the inspiration for today's bass lesson comes from Robin, who's one of my private coaching students over at eBassGuitar.com. We've been working together to build his technique up, specifically his speed, accuracy and dexterity, so he can start to play some really tricky, fast rock and roll bass lines. So I want to share one of the devices that I've been using with him today called the I Saw Her Standing There Bass Riff Speed Builder, which is an unconventional way of using bass riffs to build up your bass guitar technique. So let's give a taster of what we're going to be covering today. So guys, just before we hit the lesson content today, I want you to note that it's a completely free PDF which comes with this lesson, where you can see everything we're discussing today written out in standard notation and tab. There's a link in the description below where you can grab your free copy. Also, if you want to grab the backing track that we're using today, you can get this over at eBassGuitar.com as part of the Classic Rock Jam Tracks album. There is a link in the description below. So the bass riff to I Saw Her Standing There is one of my all-time favorite rock and roll bass lines to begin with, but it's also a device that I've used for many years to teach students real world technique. Paul McCartney was a genius when he figured this bass line out, because it really is quite tricky to get under the fingers, and if you can play it right, you know you've got a good standard of technique. So when students often learn something fast or hard, typically what they will do to learn it is they will slow it down, and I think of this as learning it vertically because we're bringing the speed down. But another way that I teach students technique is more linear or horizontal, and what I mean by that is I start to take notes out of the riff, but the critical thing is the important notes always remain placed exactly in the same place, and then what we do is we go through a process of putting the notes back in, so the riff gradually gets trickier and trickier. And the great thing about working this way is you can use the original record or a backing track, so it always sounds really good. So this is the original bass riff. So what I want to do is draw your attention to the notes which are on the first, third and fourth beat. So it's 1, 2 and 3 and 4, and those notes are an E, a B and an A. So what we can do is we can simplify it to a bass riff which is just this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then take this and play this over the verse to I Saw Her Standing There. So just one thing about the track we're using here: when we get to the ascending sequence halfway through the verse, what I'm going to do, as Paul McCartney did, is just play quarter note root notes. This is a good opportunity to give the fingers a rest as you start building up the speed of these riffs. So this is what riff number 1 sounds like. So of course the sequence I'm playing there is written out in the free PDF which comes with this lesson. And also, when you go through this process of simplifying these riffs, you may also find some really cool sounding bass lines like that one, which I really like because it's simplicity. But let's move on to riff number 2 now. So what I want to do is draw your attention to the note which is on the second beat of the original riff. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that note is a G sharp. So what I want to do is build up a riff which plays on all 4 beats of the bar, which sounds like this. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. 3, 4. So that's an E, a G sharp, a B, and an A natural like that. So practice that round and round in isolation to begin with, and now let's put it with the track so you can hear what it sounds like. So now we've got all 4 quarter notes. What we want to do is start adding the 8th notes in, and let's just do this one at a time to begin with. So what I want to do is draw your attention to the note which is on beat 2 and of the original riff. So here's the riff. So that note is 1 and 2 and. So what we're going to do on beat 2 and is add in an E natural. So we end up with a 1-bar bass riff which sounds like this: 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1. So practice that round and round to begin with, then try it with the track so you can feel what it sounds like in context. So guys, if you're enjoying this lesson, make sure you jump over to eBassGuitar.com and check out the Bass Lab Plus. The Bass Lab Plus is a full step-by-step program designed especially for the beginner to intermediate bass player. So if you love the real-world concepts I'm teaching here, make sure you check out the Bass Lab Plus, because the Bass Lab Plus is all about getting you ready to play at your first jam session, join a band, play in the worship team on a Sunday, or simply rocking out to YouTube. There is a link in the description below where you can join free today with a 14-day trial. So hopefully you can see how these riffs are now building up, and the great thing is that they always sound really, really good because you don't have to slow the track down. You can just build them up step by step. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in an extra 8th note now on riff number 4, and what I want to do is focus on beat 4 and. So this is the original riff. So the note on beat 4 and is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a G sharp in on beat 4 and. So we end up with this bass riff. So 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1. And that is, for me, is one of the most distinctive things which makes this riff really, really brilliant that Paul McCartney wrote. It's just such a great sounding riff. So let's hear what this new addition sounds like in context. Want to do in riff number 5 is show you the original Paul McCartney bass line. The reality is you could use as many steps as you want to get to the original bass line. You could have 10 different riffs, you could have 3 or 4, it doesn't matter. It's the principle I'm showing you of taking riffs in and out but still retaining the important notes, which is the key thing here. So let's talk about the original riff now. So what it is, it starts off with 2 8th notes on an E, and then it goes to a G sharp and then back to an E. So we end up with this 1 and 2 and like that. So just start off practicing that to begin with, like that. And then to add beats 3 and 4 in, what we do is we go to the B and then we go back to the E like that. So we end up with this, like that. Then we add the last 2 notes in on beats 3 and 4, which is the A to the G sharp. So we end up with the full riff, which sounds like this. So one tiny thing about the way I'm fingering this, which again is a little bit unconventional, I'm keeping my second finger rooted here. So what I'm doing is I'm doing 2, 2, and then going to the 1 like that, and then back again. So hitting the 4. Then, rather than keeping the one finger per fret technique, what I'm doing is I'm swinging back to use my third finger like that, and then raking back onto the second, which means I can keep the second finger anchored all the time. For me, that creates much more fluidity. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play the full riff with the backing track, then I'm going to break out a little bit so you can see some of the bass lines that I would naturally play and improvise over. I saw her standing there. So guys, that's the end of today's bass guitar lesson. If you've enjoyed this lesson, make sure you download the free PDF cheat sheet so you can see all of the concepts we've discussed today written out in standard notation and tab. There's a link in the description below. Also, if you're looking to push your bass guitar playing forward and are looking for an easy, simple to understand syllabus designed especially for the beginner to intermediate bass guitar player, make sure you jump over to eBassGuitar.com and check out the Bass Lab Plus. You can join free today with a 14-day trial. There's a link in the description below. Cheers, I've been James from eBassGuitar.com and I will catch you next time.